triple header. You're gonna have me and Allison Sensei and Gibbs Sensei give a little talk. And I think our talks will be relatively short, but it'll be a great way to see things with different perspectives. So I'm the lead-off hitter. So let me start here. As soon as I can get myself together here. I'd like to start first with a little quote again from Lady Kujo. Great compassion from the Buddha always embraces and guides me, yet each of my steps is fragile and unstable. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay. This is a service to honor the extraordinary contribution and work women have made to the growth of Jodo Shinshu here in our country and in our own temple. We would not be here without the sacrifice and commitment to support Jodo Shinshu teachings and our own temple. Lady Kujo, along with her sister-in-law Kazuko, founded BWA in Japan in 1904 to assist the soldiers and families in the Russo-Japanese War. In my own journey to Jodo Shinshu Buddhism is connected to one woman, my grandmother, my Bachan. I know each of you have an extraordinary woman who led you to become the amazing person that each of you are today. We are all here at the Pasadena Buddhist Temple because of the hard work and leadership of all these women, your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and so many others whose devotion allows us to be in this Hondo now. Well, let me tell you about my Bachan and the memories I have as a little girl. You know, as a little girl, I was always known by my Japanese middle name. So when I was little, I was always called Kumi-chan. And that's how all my relatives know me. They don't know me as Cathy or Catherine. My grandmother's name is Shizuyo Higashioka. You know, later in life, I discovered she was not just the humble, quiet person I knew. She drove a car in the 1920s. She was skilled in flower arrangement and calligraphy and was educated in many things. And I just saw recently, you know, in the last couple of years, my grandmother wrote a letter to the Army in 1943 in Japanese protesting my father's transfer from an Army unit in Georgia to Camp Shelby with the 100th Battalion to fight in World War II because he was Japanese American. And she said that's discrimination. I said, oh my God, that's my Bachan. But the thing about Bachan was I was attached to her. You know, it's like an extra appendage. You know, I was always either on her chest or on her lap. And all my pictures of her, seriously, I think I'm on her lap a lot. You know, Reverend Hirano once mentioned that you sometimes learn Buddhism by walking the Dharma. Renyo Shonin did so by walking with his father, the abbot, to visit different temples and people and experiencing Buddhism. So as a little girl, I walked with my Bachan to visit all her friends in San Mateo and to the Buddhist church. Of course, I do remember feeling like, it's a pretty long walk and it's pretty boring, but I loved being with her and holding her hand. Her quiet, serious presence made me feel like there was something deeper in those walks. We'd return, and she always chanted every day in front of this huge obutsudan in their living room. I just loved that obutsudan. I just thought it was the, most magnificent thing I had ever seen. But we were always expected to do gassho before we ate. So it was a natural part of my life then. Her calm, loving presence reminds me that she was teaching me that Amida was present in every step we took together. I feel like I absorbed the Dharma through my body, my heart, and mind through her deep love. I felt safe just being with her. There was no doubt. Maybe this is like being in the Nembutsu and Amida's light and wisdom. I may have felt it as a child, but I haven't quite made it in my adult life. Lady Kujo must have had the same effect as she ministered to the sick and injured of the earthquake. I know people must have felt her warmth, her kindness, and her deep faith in the Nembutsu. They must have felt safe, enveloped in that love that comes from her deep understanding and belief in Jodo Shinshu, that we are all connected and that one person's suffering is ours as well. Bachan was my safe harbor, and in her own way, always assuring me that things will be all right. You know, I love to use props, so here it is. This has been, probably before I even could speak, was always on my wall above me. And it's nothing fancy. It's a cutout picture from a calendar of a little baby Buddha. But it is truly a treasure that I carry with me wherever I go. So in some ways, I've never needed an Obutsudan because that's kind of been my Obutsudan. So when I look back at my childhood, I remember my Bachan and that she always had an unspoken message for me. Being in her love was like being in the Nembutsu and Amida's compassion. You know, sometimes wisdom is shown to you when you are young, and only can you understand that lesson when you look back. I am so grateful to try my Dharma talks with you because it helps me remember these experiences and people who remind me of the Nembutsu and feel gratitude to all who helped me become the person I am today. I'd like to reflect today, I'd like all of you to reflect today on Super Bowl Sunday on a special woman who made an impact in your life and thank her as we celebrate BWA women and Lady Kujo who have shown us the way. I'd like to end this with another quote from Lady Kujo, and it's from Gasho from the heart. But when we openly lament the way we are, when we humbly place our hands in Gasho from the heart, we will clearly see the bright torch raised high for lost and deluded seekers to gaze upon. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And thank you very much. And now we will have Allison Sensei speak, and then Reverend Gibbs.
Thank you, Miss Cathy. Good morning, everyone. While I'm setting up here, let's see here. Okay, so what I will do is I will read a short passage, and then I will continue along with my message. No one does. No one does. No one does. No one does. I take refuge in the Tathagata of immeasurable life. I entrust myself to the Buddha of inconceivable lights. No one does. So the passage I just quoted is from the first two phrases of the Shoshinge, also known as the long chant, which is found as part of the Ken Jodo Shinjitsu Kyogyo Shonwon Lui, or the Kyogyo Shinsho for short, which is the main work of Shinran Shonin, who is the founder of Jodo Shinshu, our school of Buddhism, and as well is in the altar on the right-hand side over there. So today, as we mentioned, we are observing the 98th year memorial service of Lady Takeko Kujo, who, as mentioned, passed away on February 7th, 1928. That means in 2 years, we will be observing her 100th year memorial service. So for my talk, I would like to take the opportunity to talk about the Buddhist Women's Association, or BWA, that Lady Takeko Kujo helped to co-found. As posted on the temple website, the Pasadena BWA is a service group which provides assistance to the Sangha of this temple and also to other organizations. What does it mean, though, to provide to a Sangha? Let's first define the term Sangha. When I mention the term Sangha, I'm referring to all of us here who are learning about the teachings of the Buddha together. Now, going back to the BWA, they do a lot of things, right? One of the most recent ways they have helped to assist the temple is by cleaning the altar ornaments here, which I think that's why the bird came in, because everything is just so shiny up here. The cleaning of the altar ornaments has been done for many times over the course of many years. If the altar ornaments had not been cleaned over all of these years, what would have happened? The ornaments would all have become dull. They would have all lost their shine. The bird might have not come in earlier. So the upkeep is very important for these ornaments. This type of work for the temple, for the community, is not a small undertaking. The amount of work the members of the BWA do and continue to do is something that Takeko Kujo probably did as well. She continued to work very hard for her community up until her unfortunate passing. Her contributions are a part of the karmic conditions that have led us to hold this special service today. So, speaking of shining, let's go back to the passage that I mentioned at the beginning. I take refuge in the Tathagata of immeasurable life. I entrust myself to the Buddha of inconceivable light. So both of the terms, Tathagata of immeasurable life and the Buddha of inconceivable light, refer to Amida Buddha, who is in the middle of the altar here. The name Amida comes from the combination of two Sanskrit terms, Amita Ayus, which means immeasurable life, and Amitabha, which roughly means light that is without measure. Both of these attributes define Amida, or the Buddha that we rely on and entrust ourselves to. And I believe that taking refuge and entrusting is difficult, yet easy. Well, how can something be difficult yet easy? In a very loose way, it's kind of like doing art. And it may be difficult because we have a preconceived notion of what art is. But it's also kind of easy in the sense that by doing art, we are creating art. Art doesn't need to be perfect or professional. Art, I believe, is an expression. As children, for example, we may create things that could not possibly compare to something a professional can do. But there is a joy in creating art that is unmistakable. It is because of that joy that we have when creating art that that joy can be shared with our parents, our teachers, our community, and everyone that is around us. This is, I believe, similar to the joy that we can feel when taking refuge, relying on, entrusting ourselves to Amida. We don't have to be great at it. We don't have to be doctrinal experts. But if and when we share that joy, it is authentic. It is art. Sharing our joy, sharing our appreciation for the Nembutsu, is what the BWA also expresses in many of their activities that they do. And the temple makes it easier to participate in services like this. These activities, like cleaning all the altar pieces, we all benefit from these actions. Learning to appreciate this sharing is one way we deepen our understanding and appreciation for the karmic conditions that have led us to this moment of sharing the Nembutsu together. And sharing the Nembutsu is what makes us a Sangha. So as we gather today for the memorial service for Lady Takeko Kujo, let's take a moment to reflect on those karmic conditions that have led us to this moment, to take refuge in the Tathagata of immeasurable life, and to entrust ourselves to the Buddha of inconceivable light. I know that was probably a little lengthy, but thank you very much for listening to my message, and I will just close real quick with Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
And our closing act is Reverend Gibbs. So, thank you. I think, you get 3 different perspectives, and I hope you gain from, hopefully, each of us.
Yeah, thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Ali. Well, again, good morning. I also will pause to thank some folks. I want to thank Alan Goto, our videographer. I want to thank Howard Hayes for playing organ, Cathy Mikuni and Allison Yasaki, our minister's assistants, for their performances, their help here, and the Buddhist Women's Association has provided the flowers today. You've already heard 2 excellent Dharma talks, so I won't speak at great length. I will speak only briefly. I'll make some reference to one of Lady Takeko Kujo's works, the Muyuge. We've told you something about her. She picked up this blood poisoning. I have a friend that died of blood poisoning, and I have no idea what it is, right? What is blood poisoning? I don't know. But she picked it up by treating the injured in the great Tokyo earthquake, the fires that followed the earthquake. She picked it up treating those who were sick, and she did establish that hospital in Tokyo, the Asoka Clinic, and the Ashoka Clinic has a affiliate in Kyoto that I was treated at as well. This book was her most successful book, published many times, and the money that came from that book she used to establish hospitals and women's colleges. And my wife Kyoko studied at the first of those colleges that she established in Kyoto, Kyoto Women's University. Now I'm going to reread that she has 2 passages that balance one another, but the one is, now these are translations by a friend of mine, and the translations are so sorry, but I don't know about the originals, but these 2 important points, the one is just more interestingly presented. The one that's read all the time is eternity in a moment, and I'll read that for you. No, the moment in eternity, I'll read that for you, but the opposite is eternity in the moment, which is an important idea, but I won't read the whole thing. I'll read one sentence from there. So the idea is, that she's trying to share with us, is that we are just a moment within eternity. There is this vast expanse of space-time, and we're this little tiny thing within it. On the other hand, this vast expanse of space-time, this universal process, only exists as you and me and other events within this process. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So first, I will read in detail her piece, A Moment in Eternity, one of her most well-known pieces. Lady Kujo. A Moment in Eternity. Shadows from the 7 hills of Rome creep up to the ruins of an ancient civilization. The ruins seem to symbolize the end of history on Earth. When compared with eternal nature, the briefness of man's history and his impermanence become clear. Our existence is no more than a grain of millet. Regardless of how momentary, however, there is no doubt that we exist. We must not let even a fraction of our time escape us. The sacredness of life thus becomes apparent. Our grief is not that life is so short, but that we are unable to live our momentary life well. So she's telling us we're just a moment in eternity, but she's also telling us, I'm going to only read the last sentence of eternity in a moment. An eon passes during a moment of a dream. The karma of 100,000 eons is hidden in the one moment that we take a breath. The karma of 100,000 eons is hidden in that one moment when we take a breath. Everything is everything. Compared to the vastness of the universe, the extent of universal process, the immensity of space-time, we are like a grain of millet. Now that is a Japanese aristocratic image, right? You all saw Seven Samurai? There's a point in Seven Samurai where the farmers are feeding these samurai they're collecting to protect them. And at one point one samurai says to the other, they're feeding us this rice, but they're eating millet. It's like, ooh, ever eaten millet? It's okay. They sell it in health food stores. I ate it 50-some years ago. They're they come in several forms, but I got the kind that's the little round ones, little round, light yellow ones. It's kind of like, if you put honey and milk on them, it's kind of like Kellogg's Corn Pops. They're okay, but to an aristocrat, you eat rice, you don't eat millet. And we're like a grain of millet. That's how important we are. On the other hand, there's only grains of rice, grains of millet, the bird flying through the room, you and me. We are life itself. We are an expression of life itself. So eternity only exists in this moment as moments like ourselves. To use another phrase from a Buddhist sutra, we're each one bright pearl. This is a koan from a collection. Dogen Zenji has a nice commentary on it, but we're each one bright pearl. I'll tell you the koan. I know it's going to take a little while, but this teacher, there was a period about 1,000 years ago when the Chinese teachers, each of them had their one thing. You all know the Nanzen cuts the cat. If you don't say one word of wisdom or I'll kill this cat. Now there's a Japanese telling and the Chinese telling of this, right? In the Chinese telling, he kills the cat because the student can't say anything. In the Japanese telling of the story, he gestures at killing. He doesn't actually kill the cat. Cultural difference there. But the point is these guys had this one thing they said, and the one guy, this one famous teacher, his thing was, everything is one bright pearl. So he was working with this one young student, and the young monk comes walking down the path one day, and the great teacher examines the young student and says, so tell me, what have you learned? What have I taught you so far? And he said, everything is one bright pearl. And so the teacher says, you were like a demon pacing back and forth in a cave buried under a black mountain. This was a kind of an insult. And but Dogen Zenji's commentary, picked out of the Koan collection itself, but he particularly focuses on it, is that even a demon pacing back and forth in a cave buried beneath a black mountain is one bright pearl. We are each one bright pearl. She's telling us that too. We are just one moment in eternity, but we are eternity in this moment. In other words, everything is everything. There's the Lauryn Hill song, which is okay, but that phrase was originally used in a song called I Hear Voices by Donny Hathaway, which is famous for the bass solo if you're into rhythm and blues music. The live version, the bass solo is very famous. But the refrain to that song is, everything is everything. Everything is everything. However, you know what happened to Donny Hathaway? He heard voices, and he jumped out a window to his death. So just knowing that everything is everything, just the idea won't save us. Living with that vision, knowing that you are the Buddha, you are Daiwa Ryoju Kyo present in this room, you are a moment in eternity, you are eternity in a moment. Knowing this and remembering it will make a difference. Donny Hathaway had the idea, but he couldn't quite hold on to it. Hold on to it. Hold on to that idea. This is what I want to say to you today, that we are just a moment in the vast expanse of space-time. That is true, and that's what Lady Takeko Kujo wanted us to know. But on the other hand, we are each eternity in this small package. We are eternity in this moment. Do not despair. Each of us is an expression of the universe itself. Each moment in time, each event is the entirety of life itself. This is what she wanted us to know. This is what her life tried to show us. She was the most important of our early women leaders in the 20th century. As Ali Sensei pointed out, it'll be her centennial in 2 more years. And we really appreciate your coming here today and listening to these 3 talks, each of them rather brief, each of them pointing to what this lady tried to tell us. Don't forget how small you are. Don't forget how big you are. Don't forget how small your life is. Don't forget how important your life is. Everything is everything. Thank you. As always, I'll close the Dharma portion, my Dharma message portion of this service with Gasho. Join me as you will. We rely upon the source of limitless wisdom and endless life. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you.
Thank you, both Allison Sensei for her wonderful talk and for Gibbs Sensei as well. I think we can learn a lot about, I think it's really important to listen to both Allison Sensei and Gibbs Sensei because they really give you some knowledge of the Buddhist teachings of Jodo Shinshu. If I could have